Product provided by Nintendo, specifically Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. You knew I had to test this, right? Hello everyone, I am Jmulls and Xenoblade Chronicles, my favorite IP in all of gaming. How does it work on the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo's latest console release? Well, I unboxed the Switch 2 live on stream. Okay, well I undid this tab and it did nothing. Oh, wait, it did something, hold on. Progress has been made. Oh, I think I have it upside down. Hold on. Magic. Oh, wait. So aiming the... Alright, look. It's aiming at the right direction now. On this YouTube channel, and I set out to test. But I'm not here today to give you specific numbers and get all nerdy. I'm here just to talk the brass tacks. And in this quick little video, we will go over how Xenoblade plays on the Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, let's just rip the band-aid off. The numbered games are largely the same. I hear that at least while docked, Xenoblade 2 looks a little bit more clear during combat, and I didn't notice any actual performance hiccups when I navigated any of the zones. The performance, at least in my eyes, looked rather stable for Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. I put the most time into Xenoblade 2 because it's me, and the overall graphical fidelity and just the overall visual presentation of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 is pretty much how you remember it looking from the Switch 1. The frame rate wasn't any different, maybe a bit more stable, but outside of that, it's basically what you remember with maybe slightly faster load times. One of the things that I noticed when it came to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 at least, is that the game felt more responsive to me. I can't say if it actually is, but I remember button inputs and various animations to maneuver around the UI, like bringing up the map and stuff like that, felt pretty sluggish, as if there was a bit of delay for a lot of these inputs that felt much quicker with the Switch 2. It could just be a case of me having really bad memory, because I haven't played 2 for a while, but it was one of the first things that I noticed booting it up, and I didn't audibly groan whenever I wanted to open up the map, because in the original version it felt as if it took an extra second. Could just be me misremembering, but it does feel a little bit smooth in that regard, a bit more responsive, but again, not because of the frame rate. Now, the outlier. The surprise element here for me is Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, the latest Xenoblade game to come out. And while I didn't notice any real differences or changes in Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, albeit I hadn't rigorously playtested any of them, Xenoblade X felt and looked as if there was a noticeable improvement when it comes to the lighting. And possibly the textures, but I think it's mostly just the lighting, that for whatever reason, just looks a bit better. Again, there's no actual frame rate improvements here, maybe a little bit in terms of overall stability, but negligible in my eyes. But particularly when I was in New LA at nighttime and when I was in the barracks did I notice these changes. When I was out in the world during daytime, I didn't really notice it flying around in my 4 race velgs, shameless flex. In cruise mode, just enjoying the sights and sounds of Xenoblade X. I didn't notice any changes there and out in the world. It was when I was in New LA at nighttime, looking at all the different lights, and when I went back into my barracks, the lighting there did look and feel better to me. It could just be a case of my eyes seeing what they want to see instead of what they're actually seeing, and misremembering how Xenoblade X looked in the original Switch, but I have the most recent experience with Xenoblade X compared to the other Xenoblade games, and I only really noticed it for X specifically, not for 1, 2, and 3. Immediately out of the gate, those games looked the same to me. But it was X where I'm like, hold on, something's different here. Now, obviously, right, even if there were some lighting adjustments for Xenoblade X for the Nintendo Switch 2, most of us are looking for more and larger changes to be made to better utilize the hardware of the Switch 2. Talked about this relatively recently. A lot of us are looking for way better overall graphical fidelity, higher resolution, and the big one being higher frame rate, with the big number goal that a lot of people are talking about being 60 FPS. I think especially since when it comes to the Switch 2, a lot of people are seeing 60 FPS as a big noticeable jump when it comes to a lot of these older Switch games actually now playing at 60 FPS, while Xenoblade isn't that. So I think more and more people are coming around to the idea that, yeah, 60 FPS for Xenoblade would be really cool to see. I will say, I'm not particularly surprised that we didn't see anything in this regard, considering that it recently came out, courtesy of Monolith, that they worked on Mario Kart World, so obviously that was going going to be the priority because that's Nintendo's heavy hitter for the Switch 2 release. That is the big console seller right now for the Switch 2. Though to me, you would imagine those would be different departments, but like, who knows? It could just easily be the case that Monolith just hasn't had the time yet to devote resources and manpower to not only setting all the older Xenoblade games to run at 60 FPS on the Switch 2, but to also QA these games to make sure that nothing ends up breaking because of that. That can happen all the time when it comes to code. You do one insignificant, at least what seems like insignificant change to the code, and all of a sudden everything breaks and you're scrambling to figure out what to actually do. If you have any experience coding, you'll be abundantly familiar with that happening. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the line we end up seeing patches and updates for Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X to get those games up to snuff, to get those games working at 60 FPS. It could just easily be the case that one, Xenoblade's not like the biggest seller for Nintendo of all time, so in terms of priorities, it's probably rather low for Nintendo. We know Monolith was also working on Mario Kart World. Who knows what else they could be working on? They're kind of Nintendo's Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways, in terms of being a support studio. It could just easily be the case that Monolith is extremely busy right now, bearing in mind they're almost certainly also looking to the future for the next Xenoblade mainline entry, probably Xenoblade Chronicles 4, Xenoblade Saga, whatever they end up calling the thing. You only have so many hours in the day, and you only have so many people in the company. So the reason being that we're not seeing 60 FPS patches for Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, 3, and X, day one out of the gate for the Nintendo Switch 2, can easily just be a lack of resources and a lack of time. And I think that's perfectly understandable to me. I would say, personally speaking though, at some point in the future, I would really like to see those 60 FPS patches for Xenoblade across the board, for every game in the series. It would give me a reason to want to go back and to replay all those games just to feel how much better they play at 60 FPS. And if you pack alongside that higher resolutions and higher fidelity, look, Xenoblade Chronicles is one of the most beautiful IPs in all of gaming when it comes to just looking at the environments and the giant biomes and landscapes that Monolith are able to craft. They're gorgeous, they're enrapturing, they're absolutely beautiful. But when you zoom in on a lot of these games and a lot of these character models, dude, they look really blurry. So just a fresh coat of paint, just so that these games play at a higher resolution with a higher frame rate, I feel that would just greatly enhance the overall experience, and also make the games not look as dated as they can now, especially in the year 2025. I'm not saying they look like a PS2 game or anything like that. What I'm saying is, compared to a lot of what we're getting in the year 2025, while the artistic style for Xenoblade punches well above its pay grade, I think it's safe to say they're not the most, graphically rigorous games of all time. So that's what I hope to see from Xenoblade in the near future, at least until we get to the next mainline entry for Xenoblade Chronicles. That's probably still a good 1.5 to 2 years out. I might be a bit even early with that prediction, but that's my hope, to fill in the gap, give us a reason to go back to Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X, to re-witness how beautiful these games are, how great these games are, while utilizing the power of the Switch 2 that we now have available to us. I think that can go a long way, and get a good amount of hype going for the series. So, here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with if you would be incentivized to go back and replay any of the Xenoblade games if they had changes like this. Higher resolution, higher frame rates, maybe even faster load times. Would you like to go back and replay these games? Or would you like to go back and just look at any one bit of scenery just to see how much it improves? And what is that scenery? I would love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again.